This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to topcatteamsales.com. That's topcatteamsales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Doc and Jock, episode 157 is available for download. Thank you for tuning in to another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Oh, you know, just sweating every single fluid out of my body out through every single pore in my body. It is so hot right now, man. Honestly, it is like the 9th layer of Hades. It's so bad. And humid. That's the worst part. You can't even breathe outside.
See, the Doc is great. I set the thermostat to 69. I'm living comfortable, man. What do you mean it's hot? What are you doing outside?
Everything. Walking into the studio, out to the studio, dude, just walking to your car, you start to sweat. I was supposed to go run today. That ain't happening. Not outside, it's not. I have to go do another trip to the gym and sit there and get some more training in, but it's brutal outside.
Well, why are you complaining? It's Michigan. People complain when it's cold. They complain when it's too hot. Listen, there are, only so many states that have all the 4 seasons. Yes, it can be humid sometimes, but why are you complaining? Let it go. You know what? It took you all of 4 seconds to walk 10 steps from your car to the studio.
Yes.
And you made a choice not to run.
And I'm still sweaty. I'm still sweaty.
So you're not a guy that likes to get all hot and bothered.
Oh, man, here's the thing, right?
Becoming a diva now that you got your own network.
No. Get out of here. My body temperature is probably about 2 to 7 degrees warmer than everybody else.
E.T. home phone.
E.T. phone home.
So if you're warm, I'm dying. Absolutely dying. Like I need to bring like a towel to sit there and towel dry off. That's usually how sweaty I get. It is awful. I keep the thermostat at home on like 71, and I have a fan that blows on me when I sleep. And I still wake up in the middle of the night sweating. And I don't even have a blanket on me. I'm just laying there. It's brutal.
Well,
I'm a sweaty bastard. That's what it comes down to.
This podcast is stacked because I'm very excited. Football is back in action. I got the NFL Network back on my dish. The contract dispute's over. I'm very happy. Now we're going to talk about college football on this podcast. We're going to talk about the Lions potentially with Justin Rose, WXYZ reporter. He's out there in Pittsburgh.
Best friend of the podcast, bro.
We're going to dial him up and see what's going on with the Pittsburgh and Lions practice. Preseason football is going to start this Friday. The Lions are going to take on Pittsburgh. You're not going to glean too much out of it, but all we got to hope for, we're going to keep our fingers crossed that the Lions escape any major injuries from this preseason game.
Just be healthy.
That's it.
Just be healthy. That's all you got to do. Be healthy. Don't worry about going out there and winning the preseason. We've seen what happens when you do that. You remember your own 16 Lions. They went 4-0 during the preseason, and what did that result in? Nothing but heartbreak and anger and the worst record all time in the NFL.
But to kick off the podcast, got to talk about the Detroit Tigers. Very interesting. A lot of things to peek at within the series versus the Mariners. Got a chance to see Daniel Norris on Tuesday. And wow, he had good stuff. I thought it was a perfect time to get him back because he was able to manage the Seattle offense. Unfortunately, they couldn't hold a 4-1 lead. About the time they gave it up was the time my eyes I couldn't stay up. I stayed up late for the first game of the series, but the second game, about the time that Justin Wilson gave up the 3-run bomb, was the time I was like, you know what? I don't got a good vibe. They're going to win. I'm not going to invest any more into this. I went to bed, woke up, got the alert. Looking at it further, They had a lead in the 15th. Victor Martinez crushed a home run. You bring on your closer, a guy that's been struggling as of late, and you go, okay, good. We're going to close this out. No problems, no worries. Come on, K-Rod, you blow it. You give up not only one, but two, and the Tigers now have lost the series to the Mariners. I'm a little excited still about JV versus King Felix, but to lose a series versus Seattle after, the performances that you've had recently is a little bit disappointing.
I think the bigger cause for concern is the struggles from K-Rod. I mean, this is basically going on a week now where he's underperformed in every opportunity he's been given. So is this spelling the end for K-Rod? I mean, let's be honest here. When the Tigers go out and they bring in a closer, this is usually where they die. It's not like you've ever had a Mariano Rivera here. It's usually a Todd Jones and the human roller coaster effect that goes along with that. We had Valverde for one season, and then the year after that, he came out and just basically threw hot dogs over the plate. It's been brutal right now. It's been absolutely atrocious, especially if you're living and dying with this team, because K-Rod's not really helping you out at all.
Brett Ausmus sometimes must feel like he must be snake bitten because he comes out. Lynn Henning was kind of talking to him about the bullpen and kind of the stability, the ups and downs of the season. And he goes and he tells him, he's like, the stability of the bullpen starts with Francisco Rodriguez when he cements the ninth inning. He referred to it as the trickle-down Frankonomics. And now he's had a tough week, basically been a closer that hasn't been able to get the job done. And I think I'm a little bit worried because, an older pitcher, he has, but see, when you look at it, it's kind of tough because the entire stretch of the season, he's been pretty much okay. Now he's had a rough stretch. You expect that in the rigors of a long season, but he's got to get out of it fast because as a result of that blown save, they lost a game now to the Indians because they won. They were able to win versus the Nationals, and so now you've lost the game because you had a 4-1 lead. And so people are speculating a little bit, why didn't you bring in Green? Justin Wilson didn't do the job. And it all happened with 2 outs in the 8th inning there for Wilson. And you know what sucks, too, is when you start reading other tweets and stuff, and people are like, well, Justin Wilson hasn't just really given up that many home runs to left-handed batters. You're like, great. Now he decides to do it in a game that you're up 4-1. 4-1. And Daniel Norris was so good. You walk away feeling bad for the guy because his performance was outstanding. But K-Rod, I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt as of today. A couple more performances like this, it's time to panic. But you do have options. Alex Wilson did a great job getting out of a bases-loaded, no-out jam. Shane Green can do the job. Maybe if Anibal Sanchez gets back into the role in the bullpen, you have options. Rondon when he comes back from the family leave. You have options if K-Rod's not the guy any longer, but I don't see, at this point in time, him falling off the face of the earth. I just think it's a 1-week struggle, crossing my fingers.
Yeah, if you look at what his season has looked like, this is just a blip on the radar right now. It's just coming at the worst time possible because they were on a winning streak, they were handling series, and they were sitting there rocking and rolling, making a real push to sit there and take over the division. And now K-Rod, the last 7 days, basically goes 4 innings, gives up 8 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned runs, walked 3 guys, and he has a whip of 2.75. Mind you, your whip is supposed to be close to 1 if you're any damn good. So he's out there just basically loading the bases up and getting guys in. It's a blip on the radar. He's got to work through it. It just is coming at the worst possible time. If I was Brad Ausmus, I'd probably set him down for 2, maybe 3 games, try to find somebody else to fill in and do some patchwork just to give him a couple days off. Let him rest a little bit. Maybe it's just tired legs, tired arm. I don't think this is the end of K-Rod. I don't think it's all just coming to a head and we're having visions of Joel Zumaya or Papa Grande there just sitting there setting themselves on fire on top of the mound. I don't think that's what we're dealing with here.
It's tough, too, to lose a series versus Seattle because you got another team that's pretty solid upcoming in the Texas Rangers, and you want to be playing a better brand of baseball. But let
me ask you this real quick. If they end up 500 on this road trip, are you okay with that? I mean, it's starting off brutal right now. Absolutely atrocious. Starting off very, very poorly for them. But if they end up 500 and they sit there, they take a series against Texas, they lose the series to the Mariners, are you fine with that? Because I'll be okay with it.
That's not bad. I don't think, though, they're going to achieve it. I think they're slated probably to go 2-4. I think they're only going to win 1 in Texas. I'm hoping they can take 2 of 3 or, hell, even get a sweep. But I'm going into the series, I'm looking at it as them taking 1 game. So it's just one of those situations where, again, you had a great week last week. Now this week, the offense lulled a little bit in the first game versus Seattle. And so you got to kind of look at it and go, okay, is this now the correction coming back? or can they continue to, kind of work through some of the injuries? Because it's tough to have Cameron Maben be out. It's tough to have Nick Castellanos be out and to sustain some consistency. But they're trying their absolute best. Miggy, V-Mart, and the emerging JD Martinez have done a relatively good job of keeping the offense flowing. But you see, and we've talked about it, everyone else has talked about it, when they score 3 to 4 runs, they're one of the most competitive teams in all of baseball. It's just when they go into those slumps and they don't get the job done, it makes it hard to win. So if that offense shows up, let's keep it rolling, baby. And we just need, again, we still have a call to action to Upton. Call to action. Paging Justin Upton. We need you desperately. Do the job. If he can emerge, if that's the guy that we can look to get that back going, then we can maybe sustain some success on the offense. But great performance by Norris, and one that I was looking at going, wow, is he going to be, each pitch, is he going to get himself hurt? But he looked dominant. He fielded the ball okay. For that start, I go, okay, I see why they kept him.
He's one of the guys that will help you stem this tide while you're dealing with these injuries. I mean, you're losing Jordan Zimmerman, you're losing Nick Castellanos, you're losing Cameron Maben. I mean, these are all instrumental pieces that are now on the DL for your team, and they're all major contributors. Cameron Maben, guy's hitting almost 325, and Nick Castellanos sits there and he brings power to that lineup and helps lengthen out that initial rotation with your starters in your batting lineup.
Which of the guys that are out do you think is hurting the team most right now?
It has to be Nicky C. I mean, look, Casey McGee's come in and done a really nice job thus far, but it's got to be Nicky C because he gives you extra power in that lineup. He can hit the ball well. He's been doing an admirable job fielding his position. Everybody always says, "Oh, he doesn't do a very good job fielding his position," but he's been solid at third base. So it's got to be Nicky C. I mean, Cameron Maben would be nice to have him back, but I think you can plug and play guys out there in center field. Jordan Zimmerman, you've got a guy like a Daniel Norris, you've got a Matt Boyd. Those guys can sit there and help stem the tide a little bit. You've seen Daniel Norris come in, give you 5 solid innings. I'd like to see maybe 6, maybe 7, but I'll take the 5 for his first time back since his DL stint. So it's got to be Nick Castellanos for me.
See, I would say that I could argue that Jordan Zimmerman's absence has caused a lot of problems in the starting rotation. Now you got to kind of count on Anibal Sanchez. Now you saw glimpses of what he could do in a single performance, and he's kind of carried it over in a couple performances where he's done a decent job. Now he's not always gotten the victory because of the offense and late issues late at the end of the games not coming through. But Anibal Sanchez is trying to fill the role, but he's not going to fill the role of a Jordan Zimmerman. When he comes back, hopefully he's healthy. Then you got a situation where you maybe, just maybe, if Daniel Norris emerges, you got Zimmerman, Verlander, Fulmer, Norris. That's not too bad. That's serviceable. But with Zimmerman out, now it's kind of patchwork. You're trying to count on Boyd and Anibal Sanchez, and that's tough.
Sanchez gave you 8 solid over the weekend.
But he's a major league pitcher. He can do it over the course.
Do you believe that he'll be able to give it to you though regularly?
No,
me neither.
No, I don't think you would be rational to say that I count on now Anibal Sanchez coming back because of the fact that he can perform for a couple innings, but once he gets through the second and third time through the lineup, the batters have a distinct advantage, and so that's why his role is so perfectly suited for the bullpen. Once or twice, max through the lineup, and you can get something out of him. As a starter, his numbers are terrible. He's not worth what he's being paid, and he hasn't really helped you win too many games. Now, a start here and there versus a team that's struggling around a 500 team or a team that's just above 500, sure, he can do the job, eat up some innings, but I'm looking at when you throw out Anibal Sanchez versus Cleveland, your hands are gripping, you're going to be a little bit nervous, as opposed to a solid Jordan Zimmerman or a solid Daniel Norris. But you can see now, it looks like at this point in time, Norris is a little bit better than Boyd. He's got better stuff. I think he's got a higher upside. So
he's a left-handed pitcher.
Pitcher as well. So I'm pretty happy that they kept him. I thought initially maybe they could have let him gone with Boyd because they're looked at his potential. But when he's healthy, he's got stuff. He can do some things, and he can get guys out.
You got to remember, too, he was supposed to be the prize of the Hall last year. It wasn't supposed to be Michael Fulmer. Michael Fulmer was a guy that Dave Dombrowski pined for and was able to get thrown in. But it was Daniel Norris who was supposed to be the real cream of the crop here. Matt Boyd's supposed to be a potential high-end number 3. Michael Fulmer was supposed to be a potential high-end number 3 if things worked out. Things really have worked out for Fulmer. He looks like he's an absolute stud. Daniel Norris, he has shown flashes. We need to see more. need him to be healthy for a season. I mean, the last 2 seasons have been so up and down, and I think that's really hindered his production and his growth as a pitcher, because it's hard to get out there and throw when you're sitting there on the DL because you got a back issue, you've got an oblique issue, you've got different things going on with your body as it's slowly breaking down, and it doesn't make sense why it's breaking down. So I think Norris has a ton of potential, and I think he can be better. I know he's better than Matt Boyd. I think he can give you some flashes like Michael Fulmer has given you this season.
We're all counting on it because right now the Tigers are right in the mix. They're right there in the wild card spot. They're contending with the Indians, and I can't wait for the next series against the Indians to see what we can do, to see how the pitching matchups are going to shake out and see if we can get some games from the Indians. And exactly, to look at Daniel Norris, you go, okay, there's potential. I can see why the Tigers management said, okay, let's try to keep him, let's roll it out. But my concern is the timing of the starting rotation. Could we be seeing Zimmerman and Verlander at the tail end of their careers as you got 3 young studs emerging? And the timing might just be mismatch, where when you need the veterans to step it up, they might be on their way out and become hittable. And then you got these young bucks that are still maybe 1 or 2 seasons away. So basically we need 2 years ago Zimmerman, 2 years ago Verlander, and put them into this starting rotation with Fulmer and Daniel Norris. Ooh, that would have been very interesting to see, but it's not going to shake out. But again, in the first game of the series, Fulmer has a shaky start by his standards, but he only gives up 2 runs, gets the loss, but he wasn't supported at all by the offense. And if that's his tough performance, we'll take that all day. And his innings are getting up there, but he's not yet close to 185. And so we ran a Twitter poll on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. 65 to 70% of the people that follow us said that they shouldn't even consider putting him on an innings cap. I was looking at it, I'm like, well, you don't really want to go above 30% increase in innings from his last year, because we're expecting this guy potentially to have a 10 to 12 year pitching career. But right now, in a instant gratification society, we don't care about his arm for the future. We go, wow, this guy's good now. Whatever he can give us, 8-9 innings every game, let's roll out and do it. But what's your take on it? Do you think that there's a distinct science and they're all looking at it like, okay, how many innings versus the percentage increase from last year? Let's see what we did with Verlander. Let's see what's the trend now to save these guys. And I was saying to Vito and to Jason too, I said, listen, if this was a $30,000 a year player, throw him out there, 225 innings this year. But when you're about to cut this guy, when his contract's up, a $30 million contract, every single pitch that he throws is going to be looked at, and every single inning is going to be monitored. So when you're about to invest and he's going to get the Brinks truck, he's going to earn it. There's no doubt about it. You got to save him, because I'd hate to see him go down with a Tommy John injury.
Oh, absolutely. You don't want to sit there and risk your future. I mean, this guy is your future ace. He's going to be the guy who's going to take that mantle from Justin Verlander. At least that's the way it's setting up this season. He's like we said, shown flashes. He looks brilliant out there. There's a little bit of cause for concern that he may be fading down the stretch here, but if you go a little bit deeper and you don't just look at the wins and losses and the no decisions, you look at his numbers, like you said, he was an absolute stud the other night that he pitched. I mean, it wasn't his fault he didn't get any run support, so he takes the L. This guy's been amazing thus far. There's only been a couple games where he looks a little bit out of place, where he's given up a large number of earned runs. But otherwise, we're talking 1, 2, maybe 3 runs a game. You would take that from anybody. I mean, do you remember Justin Verlander early on in his career being able to do things like this? I don't. When Verlander first came on, he was usually giving you 6 innings. It was a little bit erratic because he relied so heavily on that fastball that usually the second or third time through the order, the batters were able to make the necessary adjustments and hit the ball out of the park. So he would have a couple crooked numbers here and there. If you sit there and you go back and you look at Fulmer's game logs, I mean, he's only given up 2 earned runs. That's amazing. I don't think that you necessarily need to put him on a pitch count or an innings count, but you do have to monitor him. I think the way they're handling it is great. Every now and then they'll skip a start and they'll just kind of move him back a little bit in the rotation.
Perfect. Yep.
And I think it works out fine because you're not hurting your team. He's still getting to throw the ball. And you need him. Honestly, you have Verlander and you have Michael Fulmer. Those are the 2 guys you can pencil in, and you can count on 85% of the time they're going to give you a W.
But there is a distinct kind of adversarial relationship between old-time pitchers and new pitchers.
Of course. Old-time pitchers would go out there on a day's rest and sit there and throw the ball. And they would throw it 170 times if they had to.
Exactly.
It's different now.
Yeah, now it's so much more micromanaged. And guys like Dan McClain, who's been on this podcast, have come to and said, like, listen, the way that these guys are training is not exactly ideal for pitching. And so back in the day, you needed to be kind of a little bit more wiry, whereas these guys are a little bit more muscular. And so it's affecting their arm and their shoulder. And so they go, you know what? We were able to throw 7-8 innings all the time. We'd throw 200 innings, no problem. They'd have more complete games. He goes, nowadays, a complete game is a big deal because it's so specialized and these pitchers are a little bit coddled. And this day and age, I think the pitchers got it a little bit easier. You just got to go 7 innings, get your job done, give up 2 or 3 runs. And if you look at what a quality start is, sometimes it's not really, it's a little bit overhyped what a quality start is. And so, yeah, there is that adversarial relationship, but I agree with what the Tigers are doing. I'm not in agreement with the people that voted in our Twitter poll. I think they should have a cap for him because you also have to remember for the future, if this is a guy that you're going to invest a lot of money into, you want him to be around for the foreseeable future when he's in his prime. This is what he's doing as a rookie. My goodness, what can he do in season 5? The sky's the limit with this guy, and he might even be in conversations this year for Cy Young if he can continue it. I think that him, Verlander are pitching great. I don't think their numbers are going to be up there to the level of Cy Young, but it's worth mentioning and it's worth a conversation. They're not going to win the Cy Young. Verlander and Michael Fulmer are not going to win the Cy Young, but they're having quality seasons, that's for sure.
I don't know if I would be so steadfast to say that they won't win it. If you look at what Justin Verlander has done since he sent out that tweet talking about how he's going to come back and be better than ever back in early May when he got blown out by Cleveland, the guy's basically been unhittable. He's been an absolute stud. Michael Fulmer's probably going to win Rookie of the Year, and much deserved because he's been an absolute beast as well. And I'm glad you bring up winning the Cy Young because while we're sitting there prepping for the show, I found an article on ESPN, and it talks about the American League WAR leaders for pitchers this season. And Michael Fulmer is right up there with Cole Hamels. And Justin Verlander's on the back end of this, and they are within the top 8 of all pitchers. I think there's a legit possibility that if Michael Fulmer can sit there and keep pitching well, I think he has a good shot of winning it. And if Justin Verlander keeps going at the pace that he's going, he's got a great shot at it. Because I don't think that there's been any one pitcher this season who has totally blown everybody away, and you're like, wow, that guy's probably going to win the Cy Young. The one guy who, just off the top of my head, who I can see winning it would probably be Tillman from Baltimore. He's the one guy who I maybe might put ahead of Verlander and Michael Fulmer.
Okay, would you argue that the doc has a very expansive brain and a very smart guy?
I don't know how smart I'd say you are, but you're
okay. So I looked at
you are multifaceted. Let's put it that way.
Very good.
You're an interesting character.
Multifaceted individual has come up with the Cy Young predictor in the American League and the National League, and I would say that Verlander and Fulmer are nowhere near the top 10. I would say J.A. Happ has a better chance, Zach Britton, Cole Hamels, Chris Tillman, as you said, and a name from the past, Rick Porcello, is doing a much better job this season. I would argue is a better candidate, a top 5 candidate over those two guys.
With your projector, are you looking at wins and losses? What are you looking at here?
I'm looking at
what stats are you looking at to help back up your claim here?
I'm looking at wins and losses, ERA, strikeout ratios, and things like that. And so from the doc's perspective, the odds-on favorite is J.A. Happ from Toronto. He's the odds-on favorite at this point in time. And then the bottom 5 on my list would go Chris Sale, Aaron Sanchez, Stephen Wright, Roberto Osuna, or Corey Kluber. So those are 10 names that come off the top of my head.
The Klub.
Yeah, that are probably likely to be better candidates to win the Cy Young. I think you're being a little bit of a homer on this one.
But do this for me. Look at what Justin Verlander has done lately. And look at what Michael Fulmer has basically done the last 3 months. Both of those guys, if you project those stats out, they should be right there in the conversation. I'm saying they should be in the conversation. I don't necessarily know that they're going to win, but they need to be mentioned in the conversation because they have done incredible things. Verlander, most of his stats, why his numbers are kind of where they're at is because he had a real rough beginning of the season. The last 9-10 games, the guy's been a stud, been an absolute animal out there.
you know what he qualifies to win? The award that he won, I think, was the AL Offensive Player or Offensive Pitcher of the Month, which he did win. So that's what he qualifies for. I'd say that he is not in the conversation because he does, from time to time, have struggles with those 1 or 2 innings where, he relies too much on the fastball. And his fastball, if, quality hitters can catch up to it, it's hittable. So I would say that in the stretch going on for the rest of the season, I don't think he's going to put up the numbers that are going to consistently allow him to be in the conversation. That's all.
All right, I just agree to disagree. How about that? I think when the season's over, I think Verlander or Michael Fulmer will be mentioned in the conversation and should be mentioned in the conversation.
Okay, no, very good. But I do believe in the future, Michael Fulmer will be a Cy Young candidate and probably will win that award, no doubt about it. But right now, it's a little bit exciting watching the Tigers. I mean, they're right in the thick of things. They're going to be playing, obviously, meaningful games the rest of August and September, meaningful series. And so right now is the best time if you've been a bandwagon person, jumped off a little bit, come back on, peek in, because there are great storylines all over this baseball team in terms of the offense, the starting pitching, the bullpen, how it shakes out, and there's always a conversation with the manager in terms of how he's implementing and utilizing his strategy. So it's been fun actually peeking in more in-depthly to the Detroit Tigers, and I'm enjoying it. But the disappointing part is that you really see if this team can dial it up more often than not, they're competitive. It's just the fact they can't do it time in and time out. So we'll see. I'm kind of feeling like we're going to start seeing the correction back to 500 in the next week or two, but that's just based upon their play the rest of the year.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
No correction? Keep it going?
No correction. Keep it going.
Well, I was wrong. I had said that they'd never be even 5 to 6 or 7 games above 500, and they got to at least 10 or 11. I was like, whoa, what a great end of July that they had. It was awesome.
A few weeks ago when they were getting manhandled by Cleveland for the 10th time, I sat there and I came on this very show and I said, you know what? They're not going to catch Cleveland, but they'll be in it for the wild card. I might be changing my tune a little bit in saying that they are going to win the Central. I believe that this team will win the Central.
Well, right now, as of this recording, they're sitting at 61-52, 3.5 games back. Last 10 games, they've been six wins, 4 losses. So right around that 500 clip. They're playing a better brand of baseball, but it just looks like, I'm hoping that the bullpen can recover from the bad performance that we've seen. It's just every time it happens, we're a little bit oversensitive. But the question that I asked Vito was, besides K-Rod, who do you count on in this bullpen? Who do you say, okay, you take the mantle and be the next man up? Who's 1B? Who's the...
Shane Green.
That's the guy?
Shane Green.
Well, okay,
yeah.
Well, you didn't use him in Tuesday night's game, so who's the next guy after that?
But he's dealing with an issue. He might have a strained butt muscle is what it sounds like.
Oh, great.
So
who's next up? Who's the other assistant there?
After Shane Green,
is it Alex Wilson? Is that the guy you count on?
It'd probably be Alex Wilson, if not Alex Wilson. I mean, Blaine Hardy looked pretty solid the other night, but I don't have a ton of confidence in him. It gets dicey after that. That's part of the reason why I wanted a guy who's a veteran who has the ability to sit there and throw a multitude of different pitches, doesn't have the speed he once had, but is a little bit crafty out there in Anibal Sanchez, be able to move him to the bullpen because it gives you another bullet in that chamber where if things aren't going right and you need a guy to give you some long relief, he can do it. He can spell you for 2 or 3 innings, maybe 4 if he's on his game.
All right, let's take a quick timeout. Great Tigers talk. I love the fact that we can just turn on the mics and just rip and talk about MLB, baseball, and our Detroit Tigers. Stay with us. Doc and Jock, episode 156, is going to roll along. We're going to dial up Justin Rose, WXYZ. Let's see what's going on out there in Pittsburgh, a place that I know he's very fond of. Doc and Jock, we'll be right back.
Guys, it's more refreshing and cooler than that ice-cold beer while you sit there and mow the lawn. Definitely not you if you're running around in this heat, in that office, wearing that stuffy, smelly, pit-stained dress shirt that's wrinkled to the high heavens. Don't worry now. Uncle Jock's got you covered, or should I say Larry Hunt's got you covered, with their moisture-wicking, anti-odor, breathable 4-way stretch 100% cotton dress shirt that will keep you cool like the other side of the pillow. Look, guys, I've been wearing mine for some time now, and I absolutely love them. They keep me cool, dry, fresh-looking all day long, so I can handle some business during the day and then head out and tear up the night while still looking fresh and clean. On top of it, this is probably the best part. The shirt is made, designed, and crafted by Detroiters in Detroit. See all the incredible styles Lawrence Hunt has to offer? Head over to lawrencehuntfashion.com. That's lawrencehuntfashion.com. And if you use promo code DSP, guess what? We'll save you 20% off your order. That's right, 20%. If you don't believe me, listen to Detroit Tigers catcher James McCann.
I'm a jeans and boots kind of guy, and taking my wife out to eat, I love putting on my Lawrence Hunt dress shirt. The way they stretch, the way they feel, they move with my body just like a t-shirt would. I know that I'm wearing a dress shirt, but it really doesn't feel like it.
That's LawrenceHuntFashion.com. Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out FanaticU.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, FanaticU.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain, break the whole damn table.
On the phone with us right now is a good friend of mine, a good friend of the podcast, Mr. Justin Rose. Mr. Justin Rose, how are you, sir?
Not bad, buddy. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. So it's been a while since I seen you last. I mean, the web show. You got any information for us? What's going on here?
Well, you know, we're taking a little bit of a summer hiatus, if you will. Sports never slows down, but at the same time, scheduling and vacation time is a precedent at this time of the year. So we're going to be revamping it. We're going to be changing the date probably. It's going to probably be on Fridays instead of on Mondays. So it's probably more of a preview show than a look back episode, which should be a little bit more fun, get a little bit more engagement with, you know, the viewers out there, because that's what we really want. And so we're probably going to relaunch this here in the next couple of weeks. But keep up with Adam and I, and we'll definitely let you guys know when it is back in tune.
That's right. Just follow us on Twitter. You can follow Justin on Twitter at JRoseWXYZ. You can follow me on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. And of course, follow the Detroit Podcast on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Now, you're basically back in your home away from home here in Pittsburgh. What's been going on, man? How you enjoying your time?
Oh, I'm loving it. You kidding me? Hit the south side, got some wings and a couple of beverages down the other night. And yesterday I'm in Latrobe right now, which is about an hour outside of Pittsburgh, where the Steelers have been holding camp at St. Vincent College for 51 years. So they are pretty comfortable out here.
I was going to say, so they're like the bedrock of that foundation out there, huh?
Oh, yeah, this is where they've been doing this for, you think of all the Steelers greats from, all of the lore, and it starts right here every year for them. So it's really cool to come out and kind of see how they've continued to, keep this place up and make it a really cool destination. And if you've watched any of my reports on Channel 7 yesterday or today, you'll see that it's just a really unique scene out here.
What do you mean any of your reports? How about all of your reports? Don't miss one.
Hey, people got lives, man.
not when you're on the TV. Come on now, everything stops.
I wish that were only the truth.
Now, Justin, a lot of people are talking about the fact that the Lions haven't practiced with another squad since around 2001, and a lot of people have kind of commented like, "Wow, it's really a different scene from the scene over there at Allen Park." For those that don't get a chance to watch the Lions practice, set the scene for us. What was it like to watch the Lions practice versus another NFL squad?
Well, it's really cool because they, instead of doing individual work against the guys that they're familiar with, you're going up against a guy you may never played against in your life. So to see a guy like Antonio Brown and Darius Slay match up and go head-to-head, I mean, that's a headlining matchup. Week in, week out of the NFL, you want to see how your top corner is going to do against the top wide receiver. And yesterday, AB had the advantage on young Darius. But today's another day. They'll go at it again, and we'll see. Now, on the other flip side, Ziggy Ansah tore up the offensive line and the tackles that the Steelers put out there. So, each position battle it's different because it's not against somebody that they've ever really gone up against before until yesterday. So this will be the second time they may have ever played them. So it's interesting to see the compete level go up that much more, because not only are you trying to, be prideful in your position against maybe one of your teammates, but you're going up against another NFL caliber player from a different team, and you don't want to look foolish. You don't want to get beat. You want to win. So it makes that compete level just go up that much more.
Well, since you started with the defense, let's begin right there. What do you think the story is with DeAndre Levy? I mean, this guy 2 years ago was setting the whole entire NFL on fire. Almost seemed like he came out of nowhere, and then he gets hurt last year, and now this season he's not even practicing.
Well, I mean, it's definitely one of the big, question marks out there. I still think that there's some lingering issues from that hip that have kept him from, rejoining his team on the field. Everyone keeps saying, Lions keep saying that, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. But it's only a matter of time until that argument no longer holds water. So he's got to try to get back out there as soon as he can. And I mean, we don't know when it's going to happen. And every time I talk to him, he seems in good spirits. He's not, he's not down on himself. He's bummed that he's not out there, but at the same time, he's not going to, tip his hat on whether or not it's something long term or whatnot. So we really don't know the answer to that question, and I know fans want to know, but you just have to hold out hope that the staff is doing what's best for him, his health wise, because they've invested a lot of money and a lot of years in him, and you can't just rush him back for the sake of rushing him back. I mean, injuries can linger for a very long period of time, especially in a contact sport like this football game we're talking about. So to rush him back would be a drastic mistake. But at the same time, understanding that he needs to be a part of this defense for them to have success is another thing that kind of makes it that much more difficult to just trust and relax and let it happen.
Does this sound more like it's like a Joel Zumaya type injury, playing Guitar Hero, hurt something? Probably in DeAndre Levy's case, doing some type of extreme sport, and something kind of goes awry here, because the Lions are saying it's not a football-related injury, but they're not telling us what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's speculatory. I can't really comment on whether or not, it is an off-the-field thing that is holding him back from getting out there on the field. I mean, it's one of those things where fans are going to want to look for answers for something, and the teams just don't talk about injuries. So I don't know if it is or not. Obviously, DeAndre is no secret of what he's done in the offseason, traveling around the world and seeing all sorts of, cool places and doing some interesting things with his spare time. But at the same time, he understands that he needs to be on the football field to continue his livelihood, or else, the team's going to go elsewhere. So he, I don't really have too much more information on that, but it could be, sure. I mean, it could be that, and it could be an issue still with that infection that he had on his hip.
Now, Justin, a lot of talk regarding the offensive line and defensive line early in training camp. Right now, people are a little bit sketchy on the offensive line because they're hearing reports that the Lions' defensive line is crushing them. But at the practice versus Pittsburgh, the offensive line in one-on-one drills seem like they did a relatively good job. Do you think that, relatively speaking, the offensive line has an opportunity to do a good job this season?
It does. It does. They're going to be, it's going to be a work in progress the entire season, but that's kind of how it always is going to be. I think there's this general fan thought process that game one, they're going to be perfect and everything's going to be right where it needs to be. And that's the team you're going to see in week 16 when you're playing for a playoff spot. And that's just not the case. You got a lot of young players. I mean, Taylor Decker I talked to him yesterday. He said, this is the first time I've ever played against another NFL caliber person, not my teammate, since I've been in the NFL. So think about that. He gets drafted and he does OTAs, he does rookie camp, he does all those different things against other rookies and his own teammates. And then all of a sudden now he's going up against Cam Hayward and different types of players that have been in the NFL for 5-6 years. So he's getting a real dose of, reality and what it takes to compete with these guys at this level. So it's a work in progress. I think that the Lions, obviously, they can't go into the season being like, our offensive line is firmly set, and we're very happy with where they are. I don't think they're fooling anybody. But at the same time, if you go ask Mike Tomlin, how's your offensive line? He goes, it's a work in progress. So I don't think any team's going in there saying our offensive line is dominant. Our offensive line is completely how it should be, and everybody's playing to their top potential on August 10th.
Justin, headed into the season right now, Lions have invested a lot into that offensive line. Also, they're trying to offset the loss of Calvin Johnson. Has Bob Quinn provided this team with enough resources to sit there and kind of counteract that loss of Calvin and that young offensive line?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that if you look at the wide receivers, Marvin Jones stole the show yesterday. I mean, he was unbelievable. He might be their number one receiver. He's emerging as that kind of guy. And then Golden Tate, he has, what he can do. We've seen what he can do. His flashes of brilliance are still there. And then a pickup of Anquan Bolden. I mean, that's the big, tall, big-bodied receiver that Calvin Johnson was. And so while he doesn't have the same speed or skill set as Calvin Johnson, nobody does. I mean, nobody has his skill set. You're not going to be able to completely replace him, but offsetting him with 3 quality wide receivers, hopefully Eric Ebron can, continue to be a valuable asset to the offense. And I think you have 4 targets right there. You're not even counting your running backs. So that's, I think that's enough to counteract it. I mean, you're not going to ever replace a guy like Calvin Johnson. It just doesn't happen. No franchise. Think of all the greats that have retired. You don't just plug in a new guy and, we never missed him. That you just don't get that.
What do you think are realistic expectations for Anquan Boldin? Do you think he'll firmly fit into that slot at number 3?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to be kind of cautious with him a little bit too because of his age and like injury prone, not an injury prone guy. I mean, he's a big body guy. He's played a lot of downs, but I think they're going to, use him when necessary. I definitely think he fits into the slot, but don't forget about guys like TJ Jones and some of the other smaller receivers that can play that slot position adequately, above adequately to get the job done. It's going to be on Matthew Stafford to be accurate in these short passes. We've seen in the second half of last season that this team is capable of taking care of business and winning games down the stretch of the season when they, didn't do that in the beginning. The NFL season to me, guys, it frankly is every team is built to go 8-8. Even the worst teams have the capability of going 8-8. I just think that it's the ball bounce and the luck that you kind of build for yourself, and the ball has to bounce your way 3 or 4 games, and you're a playoff team or you're a losing team. I mean, that's really the reality of this. If you look at last year's season, if Calvin doesn't fumble on the 1-yard line and they call that batted out of the end zone play against Seattle correctly, they don't lose that game. Then the next week against Denver at home, if Matthew Stafford doesn't get broken in half as they're trying to go down the field to tie the game, maybe they win that game. I mean, these are just 1 or 2 plays in 2 games that they lost. They go the other way. We don't know, but you certainly have to think that they had a better chance to win it if those things go their way. So top to bottom, I think the Lions have just enough to get to that 8-8, and if they can, create some of that luck for themselves and put themselves in a situation to be successful, they're going to be a better team than I think a lot of people think.
Now, when Eric Ebron went down in practice, fans freaked out a little bit, thinking that, they seen that Eric Ebron could potentially be a security blanket for Matthew Stafford. But now a name has emerged, Cole Wick, a guy in OTAs kind of emerged as a guy that people are looking to. He's had a strong practice. Early thoughts are that this could be a signing, an unrestricted free agent signing that could really pan out for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and they're going to need some help at the tight end situation. They can't go in with Pettigrew and Ebron alone. And if Wick did actually score a touchdown against the Steelers' number 1 defense yesterday when they got down to the goal line. So he's the type of guy that can, hopefully fill in as a need basis. But I don't think he's going to be dethroning Ebron anytime soon.
On the phone with us right now is good friend, actually, we should say best friend of the podcast, Justin Rose. You can check him out on Twitter at JRoseWXYZ. Justin, headed into the season, actually last season, Ziggy Ansah was a monster on that defensive line. Does Ziggy Ansah take that next step and become the most dominant 4-3 D end in football?
Oh, it's a tough question. There's so many good names out there, but yeah, he certainly has the capability of stepping into that type of role. I mean, an offense or defensive line, though, you have to remember that it's not a singularly dominant position, really. I mean, if he gets doubled all season long and they get no push from the middle, then guess what? He's not going to be a dominant defensive end because he's going to be double teamed and facing those doubles all the time. But if you get guys like Ashawn Robinson up the middle trying to do some things, and some of the other guys that they have that force the teams to adjust and, not be able to just key in on Ziggy, he can get to the ball and get to the quarterback. So he has the capability, but he can't do it alone. It's a team sport, and he can't just dominate on his own. He has to have help from the other guys up front to be able to generate a real push play in and play out.
What have you seen from Ashawn Robinson this training camp so far?
He's a guy that I'm really going to key in on today. I haven't had a chance to really watch him, so I'm not going to sit here and say that I have. But he has all the tools. I mean, you saw him play in college and how he can just disrupt and be a body in the middle that's tough to move out of there. That's the type of thing I'm going to look for a lot today when I key in on him. But he has all the capable tools of doing it. He's got the demeanor. He's a tough, rugged guy in the middle. So I think that if he can grow up early he's going to be a real good player. And coming from that Alabama system,
Grow
I
up
mean,
early.
played,
The dude looks like he's 40.
I mean, as far as the maturity level to play the game and a down base, we're talking about him looking like Greg Oden. Yeah, we can do that. But no, he's a guy that he's going to have to show signs of maturity at the NFL level in this type of game situation, because Alabama played in, the best conference arguably in the country against some of the best offensive linemen in the country. And now he has to take it that much further because these are the best of the best. So we'll see how he progresses. But that's a guy that I'm certainly going to key in on as training camp moves forward, because if he can pan out and Taylor Decker can pan out, all of a sudden we're talking about the Lions' first 2 draft picks finally panning out in their rookie seasons, which we have not talked about in a very long time.
Now, Justin, Heath Evans on the NFL Network must have something in with the Detroit Lions, because last season and now this season, you get a sense that when he comments on the Lions, it's overly negative. But yesterday on the NFL Network in his season preview, he had the Lions going 5-11. Now, a lot of other sites out there have the Lions in the 4 to 6 win range, and the fans are probably starting around 8-8. Do you think that it's fair to think that the Lions are going to win 5 games with this roster? I really think it's fair to start at 8-8, and maybe if things go well, they can get up to 9-7 or 10-6.
That's kind of what I said earlier. I think that these prognosticators, I mean, they don't know. They don't know any more than you and I do. I mean, they think they do, and these Vegas people putting down 7 wins for the Lions. I mean, okay, that's because they want to induce people to bet one way or the other. I mean, if you were going to put $1,000 on the Lions getting to 7 wins, were you feeling comfortable doing that? Some people say yes for sure. Some people say no way. So it's just, all these preseason things. Look, the players don't pay attention to them. They don't care about them. They're out to win. And there's always a surprise team every year in the NFL. Every single year there's a team that does something that they shouldn't be doing according to the prognosticators, according to the preseason. The Lions are no different than that. So I think that, I do still stand by. I think this team is a 500 team, but they have the capability of winning 10, 11 games. Because the schedule is also something that you got to take into account. They're not really playing the juggernauts like they did last year. I mean, think about, would you rather play Seattle on the road or Tennessee at home? It's a little bit of a no-brainer. Houston Texans, that's another one. That's a road game they have this year. Is that necessarily a daunting as of a task of going to Seattle? I would say no. So I think that there's, plenty of wiggle room with the schedule that the Lions, they're absolutely going to get to 5 wins. They're absolutely going to probably get to 7, in my opinion. Where they go from there is what I was talking about earlier. The ball has to bounce their way. They have to make some plays. Stafford can't throw a late interception. They can't fumble. They can't, you know what I mean? They can't let an offense go down in the 2-minute drill and beat them on the last play of the game. So those are the types of plays that I'm talking about. If they go your way, you're looking at a winning season. If they don't, you're looking at a losing one.
Now, Justin, we'll get you out of here on this. Adam and I like to throw around bets from time to time, and we don't throw around big Benjamins like you said earlier, talking about betting in Vegas, but we like to bet on the events and things like that. So the next time that Adam loses a bet to me and he's got to buy my Primanti Bros sandwich, what should we order? Because everyone's talking about it, a lot of buzz. A sandwich place out of Pittsburgh is now opening in Michigan. What should Adam buy me the first time we go there?
Should get the original, man. Get that slaw on there. Get that cold cut with the slaw. Oh, it's just so delicious.
What's in the original? What's in it?
The original is let's see. It's got coleslaw on top of turkey on white bread and some sauerkraut in there, and it's just an interesting put together sandwich. So I would definitely give it a try. It's definitely not good for you. They melt some cheese on there as well, and you get some of those soggy grease fries, and it sounds good, but it's the one a year sandwich for me. So I'll have to stop and get one down on the south side before I head home tomorrow.
All right, Justin. Hey, we'll catch you when you get back to town. All right, you have a good one. Be safe. Enjoy your home away from home, I guess.
I will do so, guys. I'm going to the Pirates game tomorrow, so that'll be a little bit of fun.
All right, shaking hands, kissing babies there. I know you will be.
Oh, you know it.
All right, brother. You take it easy. We'll see you when you get back.
All right. See you later, guys.
Big thank you to Justin Rose there. He's like my brother from another mother. He's a best friend of this podcast. Always gives us the time we need whenever we ask for it. And he comes on and just kind of kicks the knowledge like nobody else can in the city. So thank you, Justin. We appreciate it. Now we're moving on to a subject that's both near and dear to both of our hearts. It's right around the corner here. Season's changing. Doesn't feel like it today or this week at all. But the season is changing. Fall is upon us, and we've got football that's about to kick off. More importantly, we've got college football, where this rivalry between you and I really comes down to and boils right down to this area. We've got U of M and Michigan State. So let's do a little college football talk. How about that?
Yes, sir. I'm excited too. Michigan State, Michigan, both teams have a lot of question marks, and both teams have a lot of expectations going into the 2016 season. It's very interesting, the dichotomy of where it's at right now. You got some people already, and I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen when Jim Harbaugh signed on, that the expectations for him were going to be so high. And already I'm reading speculation, the hype surrounding the program, that this 2016 team for the University of Michigan has a chance to qualify for the college football playoff. And I go, okay, guys, let's be realistic here in terms of what you're going to experience. Last year was a great year for Michigan, a revival of sorts. And now you have a football team that is going to feature a new quarterback, but you got a lot of weapons to surround this new quarterback. So it's going to be a transition for Michigan, but I foreshadow a great season. But my expectation for the team is not way out of whack. And so if you want a realistic expectation, listen to Doc and maybe listen to Adam, but I don't know if he's going to spew out that they're going to be college football playoff contenders, but I do see
champions, bro. They're winning championships this year.
Oh, hell no. They're not winning no championship. But what I like, though, about Jim Harbaugh and what I like about the way he's doing it is the way that you would teach success. You go, you know what? If you don't dream it, it won't happen. So, hey, you go out there and you promote day in and day out that, hey, we're going to aim so high that people laugh at us. And so that's what I'm doing. If you're going to go out there and say that this team's going to win a national title, I will smirk a little bit, but I do foreshadow, before we start talking about Michigan in depthly, a great season. No doubt about it. It's going to be a good season for Michigan. Not college football playoff-esque, not national title-esque, but another solid season, because you got, you're basically going to be counting on a senior transfer, another one a la Jake Rudock. And potentially, I don't know about you, but are you hearing potentially that John O'Korn is going to be the guy, the transfer that's going to be the number one behind center when the season starts?
Wilson Spaeth is who I'm hearing.
That's the guy that you're hearing? I'm hearing a lot of John O'Korn, because he's got good numbers, and he was, a guy with more experience.
He hasn't played in 2 years. There's a little bit of an issue there. Spaeth has sat there. He led the team down and scored a touchdown in that Minnesota game last year. The funny thing is, there is a lot of questions for both of these teams. Like you said, this is probably the first time in a number of years where I think Michigan and Michigan State are almost the exact same team headed into the season. It's going to be real interesting to see kind of how these teams mature and how they develop as the course of the season goes on. But before we play one down, looking at them from the outside, they're almost the exact same team. They both have great coaches that come with a pedigree. They both are defense-first teams. They both have some weapons on offense, and they both have giant question marks for quarterback.
But see, I would disagree with you a little bit in that, in terms of the way I would weight the units, I would say Michigan State's defense is a little bit better than Michigan's defense, and I would say right now Michigan has more established weapons on offense at this point in time. When you look at guys like Darboh, Chesson, Jake Butt's probably going to be one of the top tight ends in the entire nation. I think the offense for Michigan has a little bit more cachet right now than Michigan State. That's got a little bit more question marks. But for Michigan State, I think that their strengths are at running back right now, and everything else is a little bit more of a question mark. So for me, I think that Michigan has you would say, if you say they're both defense first, but their strengths are right now Michigan on the offensive side and Michigan State on the defensive side.
I'm not so sure about that.
What? You would say that Michigan State doesn't have a strength when you got a guy like...
No. I'm not saying that about Michigan State. About Michigan, I think Michigan, what's going to lead this team is going to be their defense. I don't think it's going to be their offense. They do have weapons all over the offensive side of the field. But I think what they've done by bringing in Brown to sit there and be their defensive coordinator, it's a blitz-first defense. They're going to sit there and move Jabril Peppers all around the field. He's going to be a weapon. He's going to be utilized almost like J.J. Watt's utilized in Houston for the Texans defense. He's not as big, he's not as physical, but he's going to be utilized like that, where they just basically have him playing Jabril Peppers. Like, J.J. Watt plays J.J. Watt. He doesn't play your typical 4-3, he doesn't play your typical 3-4 end. He's just all over the place. That is what's going to happen with Jabril Peppers. They're going to move him in and out of coverage, have him all over the place, doing different things to disrupt the quarterback, disrupt the running backs, disrupt wide receivers. On top of it, you've got cornerbacks and you've got safeties on that team that can make big plays at all times. And it really helps. You got Jordan Lewis, who's coming back, who's an absolute stud, probably the best cornerback in all of football.
Exactly. So that's why when we talk about Jabril Peppers, everyone's kind of going, okay, he's going to get a lot of hype early on before the season starts. But when you just look at his season last year, he got torched a little bit in coverage. And some people are complaining that typically the way he's developed, he's not really a corner. He's better suited to play safety, to be utilized all over the field. Or a lot of people I've read in articles that they say at this point in time, you might be best served to utilize him as a linebacker because you lost a ton off that team at the number one spot, I would say, on the defense right now in the linebacking core because they had so many tackles. They disrupted so many plays last year. The linebacking core for Michigan, you have a lot of question marks, and so people are kind of saying, really, Jabril Peppers is a linebacker. And you should really definitely utilize him all over the field because he's got that playmaking ability. But I'm not sure so sure yet that you can say the defense is going to be a strength for Michigan or that they're going to do all.
I absolutely think.
You think so?
I'm going to put it down right now.
Okay.
This team, one of their strengths will be their defense.
Okay.
It will absolutely be their defense. And look for Jabril Peppers to be used really similar to how later on in his career Charles Woodson was utilized. Charles Woodson was utilized a lot in the nickel package. They sat there, they'd bring him up to the line, they'd drop him back, then he'd rush the line. They'll sit there, they'll have him move inside, they'll have him move outside. He's going to be all over the place.
Do fans of Michigan have any concern or any doubt about putting him on the offensive side too? Because, when you increase the workload on a guy like a Jabril Peppers, a talented guy, you risk injury. And so from the outside, my honest opinion is I would say keep him on the defense because that's where he's going to make the most impact. But he's super talented, and you saw last year that, oh my goodness, this guy can do some things on the offensive end too. So do Michigan fans complain a little bit, or do they say, you know what, if this guy is a performer, put him on the field and let's see what he can do all over the place? Because I think that by utilizing him more on the offense, it takes away from his defense, and it showed a little bit last year.
It doesn't bother me at all. I say go ahead, do it. Do it as much as you can. Don't be surprised if you don't see Jordan Lewis get in on this either. There's already talk that they're both going to be three-way players. They're going to play offense, defense, and special teams. If you have playmakers and you have guys who can make a difference on your team and sit there and are explosive and can get the ball down the field or sit there and help your team get the ball down the field, you play them. So Jordan Lewis has come out and said, I want to play offense. I want to play special teams. Coach, put me out there. Jim Harbaugh says, no problem. I'll put you out there, and we'll make packages for you. Same thing with Jabril Peppers. You've seen it last year. He did a lot of end-arounds, a lot of sweeps. There's talk that he's probably the best running back on this team. That's where one of my big question marks besides quarterback is what's this running game going to look like? We know you've got weapons on both sides, wide out, and we know that you've got probably one of the greatest tight ends in college football today playing with Jake Butt, but you don't know who's under center, and you don't know who's in that backfield. And those are two huge questions. And this offense needs a running back, somebody to take the ball and sit there and help you carry it down the field.
Well, number 4 had a solid season last year, but it was plagued a little bit by injury. And so I think exactly when you ask the question, what's the biggest question mark for Michigan on the running back situation, a lot of people are looking for Davion Smith to come in and do some damage. But the big question mark and the biggest question mark is that dude going to stay healthy enough to be on the field to help out a quarterback? Because that'll be very key for a young quarterback, if it's Spate or an inexperienced guy, or if it's a guy that comes in, if it's O'Korn, to have a solid running game, because then it'll open things up and allow them to, allow the quarterback to get to Darbo, Chesson, and the other offensive weapons.
The one thing you can say is basically it's a three-headed monster at running back for the guys who are competing. It's Davion Smith, Drake Johnson, and Ty Isaac. All these guys played last year, so there shouldn't be a learning curve. They should come in, they should know what's going on, you should get your playbook, and you should understand and be able to hit the field and just start running. No problems right there. So, and on top of that, these guys are seniors or fifth-year seniors, so their body should be matured enough to be able to handle the rigors and handle the pounding, and hopefully we have no issues with injury like last year. But I'm expecting those guys to step up and do something here. It's just, you have to see it on the field. I didn't see it at all last year. Last year, again, running back was not
inconsistent at best.
Yeah, it wasn't a good spot for this team. You couldn't sit there and be like, all right, cool. So 4th and 2, let's run the ball. And okay, we got stopped. Sweet. That's kind of what it was. It wasn't like Michigan State where you sit there and you go down the field 83 yards in 9 minutes and 30 seconds, and you sit there, you end up running the ball into the end zone to sit there and send yourself to a national championship game. It wasn't like that. Michigan has some growing pains to do under center and in the backfield.
So you think the quarterback, whoever emerges, is going to be able to lead this team? Because there's big expectations. There's an expectation that this team's going to go undefeated well into over the halfway point of the season, maybe going into Michigan State on the road. So you think that the biggest decision that's going to be made by Harbaugh is who's going to be under center? Is that the big decision?
Well, yeah. I mean, for any football team, think about it. The guy who basically touches the ball all the time on your offensive side, you got to have some confidence. You have to have some trust in him. He's got to be able to know what he's doing out there.
But wouldn't you argue that this team, with this squad, maybe de-emphasize the quarterback, take the ball out of his hands a little bit? And I know Michigan fans aren't used to hearing the word game manager, but, I know you guys like to throw
Isn't that what Jake Rudock was supposed to be in the beginning of last year?
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the year, what was he?
He emerged.
Exactly. So here's the thing. Jim Harbaugh is a quarterback whisperer. He's played the position. He knows the position. He knows it in and out, and he knows how to motivate young men. I don't have an issue with whatever Jim Harbaugh decides, and I'm sure he's going to get the most talent out of those players. So I don't want to say de-emphasize it and you make it a game manager, because I don't believe that's what Jim Harbaugh is going to do. I think he realizes if you want to motivate your quarterback and you want him to be the best player that he can be, you've got to be able to put the game on his shoulders and let him do the game the way that he feels fit. So that's how I see it playing out. And right now, it's been a good competition between Wilson Spaeth and John O'Korn. We'll see kind of how it turns out when they've played their first game against Hawaii. Don't be surprised if you see both those quarterbacks play that game, and there's not a decision made probably until the Colorado game. I wouldn't be surprised. Would you be shocked if they were sitting there running two quarterbacks and you had two quarterbacks listed as your number ones for the first 2-3 weeks of the season? Would that surprise you at all?
Of course it would surprise me. I think Jim Harbaugh, his best decision is to name a number one, go with that guy, give him full support. And while you were talking, I was peeking at a name that I was looking at. I'm like, well, this is a guy that was kind of highly touted, and I heard his name in the police blotters, but he got cleared earlier. Alex Malzone is a guy that's going to be looked at for the future, and I don't think he's going to compete this year. So that's the stuff I was looking at while you were talking. But I do believe that Jim Harbaugh is going to be successful with the quarterbacks, and that's why it's going to lead to a successful season. And so, yes, the quarterback decision is going to be a huge one for this team, and it's going to be something that's going to dictate whether it's a successful year or not. But for me, I don't have college football playoff aspirations for this team. I believe they're going to have a great season, and it's going to be similar to last year. You're going to finish the regular season with about a 10-2 record. Your losses are going to come to Michigan State on the road and Ohio State. Now, you could sprinkle in a 9-3 if you struggle against a team that I saw that took Michigan State all the way to the wire in the Big Ten title game. You got probably your toughest game outside of the marquee games versus Iowa. You go there, you show your business, you're able to handle your business against Iowa. They're no pushover. Remember, they played very solidly versus Michigan State in that Big Ten title game. You got to beat the big dogs. But going into it, if you predict that, that's kind of silly. I think that going into Michigan State with a young quarterback and a team that they have, I wouldn't be shocked this year if they actually went and did it. I'm expecting probably a very tight smash mouth game down to the wire, last two possessions in this season, barring any significant injuries. But going into the game, if you're saying that Michigan has a distinct advantage against Michigan State, I don't know about that. I would argue that. So my prediction, 10-2, okay season, one more class, and then I think the hype train is going to go full speed ahead and look out, because Michigan's going to have a good team, but not to the level that a lot of the fans are talking right now on our Twitter page and what I'm reading.
The way I see it playing out, this team will be competitive. They're going to be a very good team. I think they play second in the Big Ten East. I don't think they win it. I think the way...
Second? That means...
Yes.
You have them above State then.
I do.
Wrong. You're going to be wrong.
I do. Oh, so wait. So you're waving the white flag for Ohio State as well there, eh?
Yeah, I am.
So here's the deal. I see them going into that matchup against Michigan State, and I see this as a coin flip game. It's 50-50. One, you're on the road. Two, you've got an unknown with your quarterback as we head into the season. The thing that's helping you and is in your favor is you have an unknown with Michigan State's quarterback. You're not sure who's going to be the number one over there. We have a guess of who that's going to be, but we don't know. You don't know how he's going to perform under pressure. You're not sure what they have exactly. On top of it, as you were saying, offensively, this team does have weapons. If you can utilize your weapons, you get a quarterback who can take full advantage of what you have going on with the outsides, I think this team is in a perfect place to sit there and capitalize on heading to East Lansing and getting a W. The big issue comes when they take on Ohio State. Again, they'll be on the road for Ohio State. That's a hard place to go in and get a W. I mean, let's be honest. So I see them going 11-1. and
okay. Hey,
look, you got to go to Michigan State. You got to win. Put up or shut up now. Honestly, last season, did you think that Michigan was going to beat Michigan State?
No.
Up until it read 0-0-0, Michigan
during the game, I was a little nervous.
Led the entire time. So one bad play kind of turned the whole fortune around there, and you got bragging rights for the year. So I think that Jim Harbaugh has learned his lesson, and I think this team has learned its lesson, and I can see them going back to Michigan State and getting a W.
Okay, so is Iowa at home this year?
They're at Iowa.
Okay, so you got, you're telling me, Mr. In journalistic integrity, factual based, no fandom, that a team with a young quarterback and an experienced linebacking core is going to go on the road to Iowa and Michigan State and win both of those games.
Iowa only gets good every 4 years under Kurt Ferentz.
Okay.
They were very good last year.
You don't see it happening again this year?
No, they're not going to be good at all this year.
Okay.
It's just the way Kurt Ferentz recruits. He gets a good squad in there every 4 years, and then they go out, and then it's a rebuild. And then 4 years later, they're good, and then it's a rebuild. That's what happens. So, no, I don't give Iowa any credibility until, I don't know, probably week 5 of the college football season, and I can see what they're doing. And at that point, they better be 5-0, and they better be blowing doors off people.
Okay. Turning our attention to the defending Eastern Division champions, Michigan State. I know a lot of people are going to hate to hear it, but the big word going around is transition year. The reason why is you just lost a lot of offensive talent. I mean, when you lose Connor Cook, when you lose 3/5 of your offensive line to the NFL, then you're going to have a rebuild going on. You just can't expect that they're going to go back to back in the college football playoff. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to fall off, and doesn't mean they're going to go 8-4 from my perspective. It just means that you might be looking at some losses to teams maybe that you're not used to, potentially Notre Dame, Penn State, maybe a small chance to Michigan. But I do think, though, they're going to have a good year, and I do believe that their situation at quarterback is a little bit better than Michigan's because the guy that's going to start has been there for a long time, knows the system. He just doesn't have as much in-game experience. But
so it's Tyler O'Connor?
Tyler O'Connor
is
going to be the guy. There's no question about it. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to be in there. But there is a chance because if you saw, Damian Terry did some things in the Ohio State game. He can mix.
I was going to say, didn't Damian Terry sit there and was your backup last year? So why wouldn't he be your starter this year?
He's going to be the mixing guy that you've seen him all along, where you mix in the pace. You need maybe a running play.
Oh, so 2 quarterbacks.
Not full-time. No, I'm saying what you're going to have is...
So when you don't have 1 quarterback, you have 2 quarterbacks.
No.
When you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks.
No. What I'm saying is you have the opportunity to throw in Damian Terry for a couple plays here and there as needed. Tyler O'Connor is going to be the guy. They've used him even with Connor Cook. Damian Terry was, utilized a little bit. But Michigan State, again, what's great about them, why you can give them a lot of wins, fundamentally sound at the 2 positions you need, running back and the defensive line. The question mark is going to be, can this retooled offensive line open up the holes and continue? I do believe it's a good system, and I don't think there's going to be a big fall off. There's going to be a fall off, but with the talent that you have with Holmes, London, and Scott at the running back core, you got some potential if you can open up some holes and do some things. So the same situation that you have with Michigan in terms of you have talent surrounding the new quarterback, Michigan State has talent that they can surround a quarterback, and you're going to look to veterans to do some things. R.J. Shelton's going to be the premier guy, I believe, at wide receiver. You're going to have a huge issue kind of overcoming the loss of Burbridge, but the offense can do some things. I don't believe that the offensive line is going to be totally decimated. They're going to do some things. And then you got a solid defense led by Riley Bulla and Malik McDowell. You'll take it.
Did you hear what McDowell said?
What did he say?
He said he's not leaving school unless he's a top 3 pick.
There you go.
So he's basically putting his nuts on the table saying, hey, I'm all in this year, and I'm going to show you what I got.
And so I think what I like is, again, the disrespect card can be played another year on the Michigan State front. I mean, literally, you just come off a season where you get to the college football playoff, and I do believe that they're being disrespected. They're already being talked about to have losses to Penn State, losses to, Michigan. They're slated to have, I've heard reports and some predictions of, 7-5, 8-4 season. I don't think it's going to be that
Who's
drastic.
reporting this?
A lot of places. ESPN, Bleacher Report, Sports Illustrated.
Looking at your schedule, look, week 2, you've got a tough challenge. You got to go to Notre Dame, so that's going to be a hard game.
A lot of people have that maybe as a loss.
That might be. Again, coin flip game, just like the Michigan game. Coin flip game.
Exactly.
It can go either way.
Exactly.
The Ohio State game, I'm going to give you an L.
A lot of people have that too.
So, I mean, I can see you being, 9-3? I could see that. I could see you also being as good as 12-0. I could see you being 12-0.
12-0? No, that's too high.
I could see you welcoming in Ohio State and being able to take care of them. Did you think you were going to do it last year without Connor Cook? I mean, you went to the horseshoe and basically you beat the pants off Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State kind of beat themselves by not running the ball at all, but whatever. That's neither here nor there for us to discuss. But honestly, you have potential. You have a good coaching staff. You're right. You got some worries there with your front line, but you have a veteran running back who was an absolute stud last year. LJ Scott was a beast. So you've got him.
Madre London, always a home run threat.
Always. And I think you're going to have to figure some things out on the outside, but no big deal. Defensively, you always put out a quality product. It might not be the best in the Big Ten, but it's always a quality product that'll help get you wins. It's not going to cost you losses. And you got a guy like Malik McDowell who's basically come out and said, hey, the only way I'm leaving school is if I'm guaranteed a top 3 pick. So he's going to be busting his ass to sit there and cash in. And if he doesn't cash in, guess what? You get him next year. At least if you go by his word. So, look, I can see you being as good as number 1, and I can see you being number 3 in the Big Ten East. It's one of those types of season. I wouldn't call it a transition season. I would call it a season of flux because, again, there's a lot of unknowns with your quarterback situation. How is Tyler O'Connor going to perform? Does Damian Terry sit there and push him and take his job in the middle of the season? Why are you running 2 quarterbacks if one guy is heads and tails above the other? These are just my questions. These are just where my thoughts are. Why? So how good is that defense going to be? You lost some big names on that offensive line, and you lost some big names on that defense. How can you replenish those and restock those? Do you have the players to do it? And I think you do because you've seen it time and time again. Mark D'Antonio has no problem reloading.
An issue and a really interesting point is that, when Michigan State's bye week is? Saturday, September 10th, after the first game. Then they play the rest of the schedule. Yeah. Michigan State 2016, Michigan State schedule.
That is weird.
It is very weird. They played Friday, September 2nd, then they got Saturday the 10th off, and then you got an extra week preparation for Notre Dame. That's not bad.
That helps you out with Notre Dame because now
it's still going to be a loss, though. Primetime, NBC.
You've got 2. Yeah, well, look at why do you always wave the white flag already? You got 2 weeks to prepare.
It might be a good game, but historically, Michigan State's up and down with Notre Dame. You don't just roll up in Notre Dame and play them, So
unless you're Michigan.
Yeah, okay. So my prediction, I got Michigan State going 10-2.
I can see you being as good as 13-0 or 12-0 and being
12-0. That'd be awesome.
I can see you being as good as 12-0 and 9-3. It's just I don't know what your quarterback's going to be, and there's a lot that's put on that quarterback. I believe your defense will be good. I believe that your running back will be good. I'm not sure what your weapons are outside yet.
So 2 teams
or that offensive line.
Potential. That's going to be fun to watch.
This is what I'm talking about. Michigan and Michigan State, they're almost the same. They're almost a carbon copy of each other. I mean, they're skilled in different positions, but you have question marks at basically the same areas, and they're both going to lean on their defenses to help win games.
I can't wait for I really believe Michigan's probably going to be undefeated going into East Lansing. It's going to be a fun ride all the way, and let's just hope no one gets hurt, and let's just hope that both quarterbacks, whoever they may be that are under center, really play well, and we get another classic game. And I would take it, man. If Michigan can lead the whole game, Michigan State can come back and win at the end. That was classic. Another great memory.
That was devastating.
That was an awesome game.
Absolutely devastating.
That was just a truly awesome game. But do you think, though?
I cried in my beer.
And
then I went on a Twitter rampage on you.
Do you think before we end the podcast that the attitude that Jim Harbaugh is going with is like, hey, let's set the goal now for the national title. Let's just go with it and see what happens because, you are setting yourself up to be criticized and maybe have your opponents kind of look at you and go, okay, big dog, you want to puff yourself out. Let's give you extra solid performances.
Has Jim Harbaugh come out and said that the goal is a national championship? Has he said that?
Not in so many words, but it's skirted around it. He said that, hey, our goals are so high that if we're not making these goals to win the national title, then they're not high enough.
And here's the thing. I don't have a problem with that, but he's not come out and he's not said our goal is national championship or bust. The thing that you have to do first, you got to win the Big Ten East. Once you win the Big Ten East, go win the Big Ten. Once you win the Big Ten, win that very first playoff game. After you win that first playoff game, then go handle business. I mean, this is something that Michigan State got caught up in. You handled one job, handled another job, and then you sit there and you screwed the pooch on the other job. You know, it's the way it worked out. And when I say screw the pooch, I mean like a dumpster fire full of dog poop.
Okay, now
no points.
Last
zero.
Big
zero.
Last thought that I'm having.
That's not an O for offense like I was showing you earlier today. It's a 0.
Okay. Last thought that I'm having is the lasting.
Man, Alabama's good.
Yeah, the lasting image. Oh, you read my mind. The lasting image that I have with my Sparty program is them getting rolled by Alabama.
Roll Tide.
You see any potential hangover or used as motivation for this 2016 season? Because you basically got punched in the mouth and laid out flat, Friday style.
I like that. That was good.
Debo style, baby.
Yeah, that's right, Debo. Here's the thing. You've got Mark D'Antonio. He is a master manipulator. And he is going to get these guys' heads so screwed off and then so screwed back on, it's going to be a chip on their shoulder. Honestly, you could say, he could go into the room and he could say, hey, guess what? Everybody's telling me that the sky is blue. Not just blue, but go blue. You know what I say the sky is? I say the sky is green. Go green, go white. Let's go out there and punch everybody in the face and show them that the sky is green. And you're like, what the hell are you talking about? It's a light blue sky. It's not even the same color as Michigan. But he sits there and he does this great mind thing where he just screws your head off, screws it back on, and you go out there and you run through a wall for him. And you don't ask him how many. You don't ask him which wall. You ask him how many walls to run through.
Oh,
this is what happens.
Can't wait for the first week in September. It's coming, baby. It's getting closer. It's going to be a fun season, and I do believe it's going to be a season where both teams have a really high chance of success or a real high chance for some mediocrity, too, at the same time. You could see it if they fall off and don't perform at the level that they need to. Great podcast, sir. I don't want it to end. Got to get back to the real world here. Our little escape from the real world is about to end.
That's right, man. I can't wait for college football. This is going to be awesome. I can't wait for pro football. I mean, we get to see the Lions on Friday, so you can check those out. Check them out. I believe they're on Fox 2 on Friday, and there'll be another coverage of them on NFL Network, which you just got back.
Yes, sir. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. Episode 157 in the books. Thank you for downloading across our various platforms. We greatly appreciate it.
Go Tigers.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk.